Hi everyone, welcome back. Shout out to the movie Creed I saw last night, and shout out to the movie Luther that I saw the other day. Actually, it was at the red carpet premiere of Luther, featuring one of my favorite male actors, Idris Elba. It was at the Paris Theater, and they gave us these cute, well, some of us anyway, these cute little red ties. I like it. I think it's my first tie actually. So I decided to feature it here in this video, next to one of the grapes here that you guys see. El Selassie. Alright, so I have to give a disclaimer here before we start that this video may be triggering for some people. And if it is, don't run away right away, right? Actually, triggers can be a good thing because it lets us know what work needs to be done inside of us. Things that we have repressed, things that we have turned a blind eye to, things that we don't want to face. We're usually triggered by external events, situations that let us know what's inside of us that needs to be looked more into, right? So if you're triggered by some things I say here in this video, just ride with it, okay? So I try to remember like what inspired this. It was recently where I was inspired to do this video by something I think I was seeing, and it took me back. It took me back down memory lane. And it was very confirming of something that I've already learned, something that I've already witnessed and experienced myself regarding men. Don't be mistaken here, right? I am a heterosexual woman. I love me some men, specifically alpha men, not the betas, not the passive, not the submissive men. They just don't do it for me. But in fact, I have dated submissive men. I find them to be very repulsive, just a major turnoff. So I am going to kind of channel my inner Danny, right? I want to channel this part of myself that, and I have to also be clear here that some of the things that I say are based on a true story, right? But y'all know I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, so I like to kind of create as I make my videos. I improvise along the way. So don't be too alarmed, okay? Though some things that I know I'm going to say here are somewhat alarming. Just understand that I'm channeling an aspect of myself. So I'm gonna go back a little bit. I'm gonna go back to my younger self, right? And I remember growing up, I would be considered what they call a tomboy. No surprise, right? Or maybe it's a surprise to some of you guys. But back in the day, I was considered to be a tomboy. And I grew up in a two-parent household with my mom and my father and my sister. And we would go and visit my cousins who lived like a half hour away on my mom's side, in St. Augustine, right? And they were male cousins, funny enough. And me being a tomboy, like, I feel like I'm more androgynous, if anything. So I'm more balanced when it comes to feminine and masculine characteristics. I'm very much balanced in that, right? I wouldn't say I'm more feminine. I wouldn't say I'm more masculine. I would just say I'm well balanced, which works often to my advantage in many different scenarios, many different situations, right? I'm very adaptable. I'm very flexible when it comes to many situations. So when we would visit, like we would visit during the summer times, we would alternate summer. So some summers they would come and spend the summer with me and my sister in Jacksonville, Florida, and then we would go and spend the summer with them in St. Augustine, Florida. And I'm laughing, yo, because I think it's hilarious. It's funny. So I remember we would go and visit them, right, in St. Augustine. And they were boys, like just your typical boys, just nagging, annoying, could be disrespectful to a certain extent, right? A very attention seeking, just like children, attention seeking. And they oftentimes had to learn things the hard way, especially with me, because I was that tomboy. Like, I did everything they did, but even better, right? So you think of the things that boys do. They play basketball, they play football, they climb fences, they run down the street, especially in the country, barefoot, right? Nothing on your feet. Did I say climb fences? Yeah, jumping over fences and just the craziest things that we did, yo. Like, some of the things, y'all wouldn't believe it, right? If I was to share some of the things that we would do growing up as little children. But I was like the only girl amongst this crowd of my male cousins, and it would be their guy friends, and we would hang out. Like I said, this is grade school. This is young. This is like middle school. More so grade school, elementary school, right? And they would love to play this game where they would like try to tag. They would hit. It wasn't really tag because it was like, you know, non-consenting people, right? Like, I was a non-consenting person, like, in this situation, but they would love to have fun with me. And I would like to play with them too. Like, I feel like I had the most fun with my cousins. My sister, you know, she was a typical girl. She just liked to gossip and be on the phone, and that's never been me necessarily. I mean, I eventually came into like talking on the phone, right? But I wasn't really at that age because my sister was 3 years my senior. I wasn't at the age. She was at the age where she was just want to be inside talking on the phone. I'm like outside with my cousins, and we in, you know, in the South in the heat of the summer, and they would love to drag me into this game of like, you know, tag, where they would just hit, like hit and run, and you're supposed to go and tag them, right? Or not even tag them, but me, I created my own game and I would like literally fuck they ass up. But mysteriously, they would love it. And I would look at their faces and they had so much joy. Underneath that was so much fear, though. It's just like, how do you like being beaten, right? So, and going back down memory lane and channeling this inner Danny, right? This tomboy, like, and even juxtaposing that with recent experiences that I've had that I'm going to talk about in this video. I asked a question like, why do men like abuse, right? And I want to address that here. Like, I know why they like abuse, right? I want you guys to chime in. Feel free to share your thoughts. Why is it that some men love abuse? And so I remember like several occasions, Joe, like this was a recurring thing where they would like, hit me and I would go chase them. And I'm like, because I'm infuriated, right? And I always had to, this has just always been me. It was like, you're not going to one up me. You're not going to outdo me, right? You're not going to, think that I was very competitive. I still have that edge about me. You're not going to be better than me, all right? Or try to stun me, right? Or, you're not going to be superior than me in that way, right? Like, I am going to outdo you, right? And I'm going to make sure that whatever you thought you'd done to me, I'm definitely going to outdo that, right? Because I have to put you in your place. I always had to do that, right? Put a person in their place. And so these little boys, and of course we're the same age, right? But I think that I created this level of respect in relation to my cousins, and I felt it was very much warranted. It's just who I am, just who I was. And they would go and tag, and I go and chase them. And I remember one time, I can never forget. It was my cousins, it was his friends, and they were pretty fast, but I was faster on my feet. And we're running around the house, running, and it's just like running for their dear lives, and they're screaming like, ah! They thought it was so fun and funny. Until they had nowhere to run. They ran inside the house. And I was that type of person, still am to this day, where I don't care about like they say, not having respect for authority, but I did not care, right? I'm just like, I am going to get even, right? I'm going to get justice, essentially. And that's exactly what I did. I think in their mind, they thought that running inside that house was going to protect them, but it didn't, right? Because they think, okay, adults here, so she's not. And I think at the time, no, I don't think any adults were home. I think my little sister was there. But I can't quite remember. I don't think that any adults were home. And we ran inside the house. They ran into the room. I think the adult was home. In fact, I just didn't care. They ran into their room. And it was my cousin. It was like 3 of them. It was like, I think both of my cousins and 2 of their friends, right? It's 4. They ran into the closet. And obviously, we're kids, right? So they ran into the bedroom closet and they shut the door and they think, okay, we're safe, right? She's not going to get us. She's not going to get us. And it's funny enough, like when you think about the games that children play nowadays versus like back then, completely different, right? I think our games were more like we made our games up like on the fly, and they were more like physical activity based, where nowadays these kids are just stuck in front of a computer screen all day. So they ran into the bedroom. They closed the door. They were locked. They were trying to lock themselves on the inside. There's no lock. The only lock is their strength. So the door was shut closed as long as they could keep it closed, right? Based on their strength and their endurance. And they should have known better, though, because I'm just like, fucking better. I'm stronger than you. And in fact, I was stronger than all of they ass, right? And they were so afraid that I think they were overcome by their fear. And I was yanking on the door, like pulling it really hard. And I pulled the door open. I remember I went in the kitchen before I did this, though. And I grabbed a knife. Like, I didn't care, okay? I grabbed a knife and I yanked the door open. And, of course they were pulling. So it was just a little crack in the door. But I could see them. I could see that their faces was just like overwhelmed with fear, y'all. Just fear stricken. And I remember my cousin's friend. He was a little bit chubby. And he was like holding the door, trying to keep it closed, but he couldn't, yo. It was just, I just kept pulling it open, yanking it open, right? Because I'm like filled with adrenaline at this point, yo. And I'm like almost in a rage. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kill y'all. And I just could never forget their faces. They were just like, their eyes were wide open. And they just thought that it was the end. And I remember taking the knife and I stabbed. Because I'm like, I'm going to get this door open one way or the other. And I stabbed as like the crack, I saw the crack between the door. I used that opportunity to kind of disengage his hand, right? My cousin's friend's hand from the door. And I stabbed his hand. And then he had no choice, right? Because he was shocked, right? He automatically, his hands were open. They released and the door was wide open. And I'm like face to face with like all of these little kids. We're all the same age. And I'm up in front of them like, yeah, what y'all gonna do? What are y'all gonna do, right? And they're just like begging for their life. Like, please, please, please. And then my cousin's friend, he started to get upset. He's like, wait, I'm bleeding. Like, you stabbed me. And I was just like, but you hit me, right? And this is a game they wanted to play. And you would think that after that situation, it would have been done, right? Now, I want you guys, I'm thinking, feel free to drop your stories, but I know that I'm not the only one. I know that you have your childhood fun stories similar to this one. But you would think that after that situation, they're like, you know what? We ain't fucking with her. But no, it's just like they like this. It was a game for them, right? They got off on it. It was so much fun for them to essentially be abused, right? And this is where I want to kind of tease apart and make a differentiation between discipline and abuse. Because I think that a lot of men, and of course, you know, these were young men, these were boys, these was children, right? They're still young men. It's like, oftentimes, you know, no surprise in the Black community, there are a lot of Black men who grew up without their father. They don't have access to their fathers, right? And so, in looking back, I can definitely see how this urge for what one may see as abuse, right, is really a desire for discipline. It's a desire for structure. It's a desire for knowing that there's someone stronger than you, right, who is setting boundaries. Not that mothers don't set boundaries, but oftentimes when it comes to raising little boys, they just, they don't have it in them. You know, oftentimes they find themselves defeated when it comes to raising boys. And so for so long, they seek that discipline. They seek that structure. They seek that reinforcement, you know, in various situations. And I can get that that's what they liked about me, because I didn't play the fucking radio, right? And it was like I said, it was a back and forth game. They wanted to see how far they could go. They testing the limits, like with me, right? And I noticed it was a pattern. It's like not like a one-time thing. Like this would continue, you know. And it was like I was their big sister, though I was like the same age. It was like they kind of looked up to me and they had respect for me in that way, you know. It's almost as if I was playing like the daddy role over them, right? But the extent to which they would push those limits almost warranted abuse, right? Because it's just like they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't be responsive until it got to that point where then a knife was involved. They're like, okay, right? But even after that, they still wanted to play. They still wanted to have fun. They still wanted to push those limits. They still wanted to be beaten the fuck up. They still want you to beat the fuck up. And I remember like just growing up and hanging around them, and that's just kind of like was the dynamic. It's just like, how do y'all like this? But it's like they loved it. It was reinforcing for them. And I remember like I have so many different stories, but I remember in church, because we would always be going to church, and it was just my cousins, and I was sitting next to my cousin, still want to play, still fucking want to play, yo. And in church, he thought that, okay, I know she's not going to do it here. So in church, he tried me. And out of nowhere, I can't kid you not, yo. I cannot make this up. Out of nowhere, it's like a reflex, yo. Out of nowhere, my hand made a fist, and it went straight across his freaking nose, his face. And we're sitting next to each other. Like, I'm here, he's sitting to my right. And boom, when I say, yo, tears just flooded his eyes, yo. And then he's just sitting there. And I'm just like, but why? But why though, right? Like, why are you doing this to yourself? Why do you seek this type of attention? Why do you desire this type of treatment? He got off on it, and it didn't end there. Like, it was a reoccurring thing. I constantly would beat their ass. Now, granted, we're all adults now. You would ask them this day about this. Some admit it, they would admit some, and then they deny it, right? Because I think in growing older and maturing, it's like you're ashamed at this point. You're ashamed that you used to get beat up by your female cousin. But that's how things were, and I find it hilarious in reflecting. And then it's like fast forward thinking about one of my relationships, right, as an adult. It was actually my longest relationship. 5 years I dated this person. We were friends for way much longer, for like over a decade. And then at some point, like, I don't think it was last year, but maybe the year before last, I can't remember now, but I had to like cut him off. I'm just like, this shit, you're annoying, you know, you serve no purpose in my life, right? And I had to sever that tie. But I remember, like, in the context of our relationship, and I've talked about this before, because oftentimes, you know, I have these beta men, based on the topics that I discuss here on this platform, they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, well, would you ever? Absolutely no. But I have. But they're like, would you ever date a beta man or a submissive? I have. Now, as far as a cuck, not necessarily. I didn't make a story about that, right? Would I ever date a cuck? You guys can go and check that video out. I have to remind you guys, again, I am a storyteller, right? So when I vlog, oftentimes I'm telling stories, you know, sometimes fictional, sometimes little twists of truth in it, right? But just be reminded, I am a storyteller, okay? And so, in that video, when you guys asked me the question, would I ever date a cuckold, I responded in a story form. And you guys were like, whoa, right? Some of y'all were taken aback. You just couldn't believe, you know, what I talked about in that video. Go watch that video if you haven't watched it already. I made that video actually when I first moved back to New York in 2020. Let's take a pause right here. Let's take a pause right here. So, yeah, I had to cut that friendship off. It started off as a friendship, and then we ended up dating for 5 years, and then we just became friends for the remainder. But we had known each other for like over a decade. And I just felt like he just wasn't man enough. He was like, you are too bitch for me. Right? Because I'm definitely at that point in my life where I'm ready to travel. And through that, of course, being him supposedly being my best friend, like I'm inviting him, like, listen, this is something we had already planned out before I moved back to New York, that we would get our passports, which I got mine, he never got his. We get our passports and we would plan to travel around the world. And he knew that my top destination, my preference, number one, obviously, what do you guys think? It's Africa, right? Throughout the African continent. And he gives me this bitch-made fucking response like, oh, I'm gonna be strapped, I gotta take my gun. And it's just like, are you kidding me? If you don't want to go, just say you don't want to go. But you know damn well you can't take no fucking gun on a goddamn plane. And even if you could, why the hell would you take a gun on a vacation to Africa, to the motherland? That is the dumbest thing ever. It's just dumb. I would rather not go if you're gonna take a freaking gun, right? And so I just, at that point, like, I'm annoyed. I'm just like, cut his ass off. But we did date for 5 years. And listen, I don't know if he's watching this. He could. I don't really care. He was such a bitch. And he know he was a bitch, yo. And this is the thing. Like, I've said this before many times over. If you are what you are, you are what you are. Own that shit, right? If you know, like, by societal standards, like, you're not an alpha male, right? You're not this macho man, even though you try to live up to societal standards and expectations, but ultimately, that's not really who you are. That you're more soft-natured, people-pleasing, passive-aggressive, submissive, then that's just, you acknowledge that. Like, do you not know who you are? I would rather people to know who they are if you're going to be dealing with me, right? Because I've said this many times over. Like, one thing about me, and right, I know that, this obviously is an interface here, right? We're behind the screen, right? So perhaps you don't quite pick up on energy that well, but in person, listen, the energy is much different in person, baby, right? And I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, so it's like, in that relationship, like, granted, we did bond on another level of friendship and trust, right? But in the dating aspect, he definitely did not fucking measure up to what I look for in a man. He has certain characteristics, right? But I was more dominant than him. And that to me is a turnoff, right? It just is. It's just like, how do I have more balls than you? Right? And I know, of course, there are men who have said this about women, to say, especially black women, like, oh, black women are argumentative, black women are just too strong, right? And they say this as a reason to explain away why they choose to date outside their race and whatever, right? To each his own. Listen, I am who I am. To each his own. And I think that naturally, women, black men and black women, like, in our true essence, we're just naturally dominant anyway. But I should not have more balls than you. How do I, like, that? I don't like that. That to me is a deal breaker in any relationship. It has been in a few relationships where I carried more dominant energy. I'm fierce, yo. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it is what it is. And people who know me, have been around me, listen, they can speak. They will let you know, okay? But nah. Yeah, that bitch made energy. And this guy, who's no longer my friend, like, it was like the dynamic between us. It was just like, and carrying that dominant energy, it's like he was resting in his femininity, right? And he looked up to me to kind of be the guy. When I say like I owned his ass in that relationship, I owned him, right? Like his paychecks went to my account, right? And funny enough, like he did reach out maybe several months ago. I don't know if it was about a year ago, and he probably, I'm pretty sure, a lot of guys that I have been involved with, they come around and watch my videos, right? They secretly watch my videos. They don't let it be known though, right? They're snooping and watching my videos. You can tell. I can tell because how they interact with me. So I knew that he had watched my videos because I mentioned that I owned his ass. That his paychecks went to my account, my bank account. You know, in order for that to happen, we had to create a shared account. And I think from that, like he recently, he reached out and he was like, I want to close the account. Nigga, I don't give a damn. Close the freaking account. We can close the account, but it was like a whole chaotic thing because it's kind of difficult for people to close a shared bank account when they're in two different states, you know? So that was a whole fucking to-do. But we got the fucking account closed. I was so happy when it finally was closed down. Because I wanted to take his name off the account. It's more difficult to take a person's name off the account, you know, unless both parties are there. But granted, this is like fast forward many, many years post our fucking relationship, right? He's just like, I got an aha moment. Like, that's how slow he is, right? He's got an aha moment that, oh, let me remove my name from the account. Let me close the account. Like, you're so fucking slow. But yeah, I made it like evident, like in the previous video, that yeah, his money. This is just this fucking fact, yo. Like you probably looking back don't like it now, but his money went to my account, and I control every fucking penny and where each penny of his paycheck went to. Now, in retrospect, you may ask, like, would I want that? No, that's not the kind of relationship that I want. Like, I've made this very clear that I prefer dominant men, alpha men, men who are smarter than me. I just so happen to be a lot smarter, stronger, all the way around than a lot of men that I encounter. I'm quick on my feet. And I think women, like, we definitely mature faster than men. But yeah, that's why I think I'm so much attracted to the likes of like Dr. Umar Johnson, because he's clearly, you know, very intelligent, you know, very resourceful, wise, strong. So yeah, you gotta like be a King Kong to be with me, you know, for me to even have reverence for you in that way and naturally feel comfortable in a space to submit to you. But was I submitting to my ex? Hell no, I just didn't. I felt like I had to make the decisions because he just wasn't quick enough, wasn't smart enough, right? He just was naive and just needed direction. And that dynamic in and of itself created a situation where it was evident that he needed discipline, right? Because he grew without his father. And it was just clear, right? It's just clear communication when these men are lacking discipline. Their inner child is lacking that and is seeking that in relationships with women. So they'll kind of feed into scenarios and situations that nurture that need for them, that need to be told what to do, that need to be guided, that need to be disciplined, right? And like I said before, like there's like a thin line between discipline and abuse, and they need it so much, so to the extent where what they're craving is really abusive. It's toxicity. That's what it becomes, right? And that's the reason why those relationships don't work out. Because they crave it. It's not even just discipline, right? Because if you look at it on a spectrum, right? And discipline is more balanced, it's healthy, and then abuse is far beyond that. It's like they are craving that discipline and structure so much because there's so much of a void there that what they essentially, you know, what they will essentially respond to, they don't respond to fucking healthy interactions, right? Like what they really respond to is abuse, the other end of the spectrum. It's like little, for example, children, right? You ever seen children? You talk to them regular. Johnny, sit down. Even if you set rules and standards and structure. Sit down, Johnny. Sit, no. Do this, not that, right? You're setting consistent structure. They don't respond. But then you be like, Johnny, sit your ass down. Sit your motherfucking, if you get your ass up out that goddamn chair, I'm gonna beat your ass. Then, miraculously, Johnny never fucking get up out that goddamn chair. But it's like, why do you have to get to that point? Why do you have to yell? Why do you have to? That's what they are craving. They come into it that way. It's not that over time it becomes that. That's just what they inherently present with. That's what they want. And then you reinforce those needs that they have, right? Creating this very toxic dynamic that will never work. And that's the annoying part about it, right? And people ask me, oh, do you want to date a beta male? Hell the fuck no. All right, I don't even like myself in that dynamic, right? And those men, it's just never enough, right? For them. Nothing is never enough. And it's so annoying. And I just remember like that dynamic. You know, like I had become that woman. It's like he was my child. I don't want a fucking child. A grown man as a child. You know how fucking unattractive that is and much of a turn off that is? To have a grown man as like you're dating a child really in his mind. That shit is repulsive. Absolutely no. But that's like what essentially it is. And, you know, I just remember the way I would communicate with him. And it's like he liked that shit. He didn't like the regular fucking baseline, healthy style of communication. It's just like he liked almost when I got out of character. You can almost see like the smirk. You see like the muscles in his face change. And a little smirk. And the eyes, a little twinkle in his eyes. It's just like, are you fucking... This is some sick shit. How do you like that? And I'm sure it reminds him of his mother because it always goes back to the original family dynamics of where a person was cultured in, was raised in, right? And I got a chance to meet his mom. I'm like, okay, interesting enough. She has a very strong backbone, much like myself. So it's no surprise that he would be attracted to someone that resembles his mother characteristically. And it got to a point where it was very, very fucking toxic. Like, not only, like I said, I control the finances and I had to communicate with him verbally in a certain way, but even physically I had to communicate. And in that way, it was just like, and seeing how it play out, like, how do you like this? How is this reinforcing for you? How is this reassuring? It's like it created this sense of safety, like, okay, she cares about me. She loves me. Are you fucking kidding me? And physically, I don't know, it could be questionable as to whether or not I was like physically stronger than him. I'm definitely mentally, psychologically, and emotionally. I don't know about physically necessarily because, I mean, this was a man, you know, and when you reach a certain age, men are just naturally stronger than women. right? Unless your ass in some kind of special weightlifting category or something. That's different. But no, men are naturally stronger than women. And so I would have to say that, yes, he probably was physically stronger than me. But he would just sit there like a bitch and want that. Like, he would want to take this abuse. It was sickening. And there's no way that a woman can respect a man like that. And the same can be said if the tables were turned. There's no way that a man can respect a woman if, in fact, she is in that position where she is welcoming mistreatment and she is devaluing herself, right? Because it's a two-way street. One can play victim all fucking day. And, oh, I'm the victim and this person did. No, it was co-created. All situations, all experiences are co-created, right? Because if you don't take responsibility as a quote-unquote victim, you will find yourself in that same situation with a different person. And this is going to be your pattern. And then how do you end up in abusive situations? Like, oh, I'm just the fucking victim all the damn time. Absolutely no. Like, you have to ask yourself, and this is where that deep fucking soul searching shadow work comes in. Like, what the fuck is it about you? Because it's a part of you, whether you are conscious of it or not. But there's a part of you that likes this shit. And you are enabling this person to interact with you in such a way. You are. I've been on both sides, okay? So I can definitely speak to that truth and that reality. It's a mind game. And they don't want it to end. They love this shit, right? It becomes this neurochemical dependence that has penetrated through the innermost parts of their being. It's deeper than this dynamic. It's deeper than their desires, right? It becomes part of their neurobiological makeup. You know, almost like an addiction, like they're craving this over and over and over again, because you have to ask yourself, what is happening neurologically in a person's body, their brain, their body, when they are enduring this type of treatment? What is the neurobiological basis of these interactions? If you only knew what happens in the brain and the body, it would make perfect sense to not only attribute responsibility to the person enacting this treatment, right, but the person on the other end receiving it. You're benefiting from this. And the reason why that this person on the receiving end should be held accountable, because they have the wherewithal, right? They're not mentally incompetent. We're talking about adults here. That's what I talk about on my channel. Adult experiences, right? Adult relationships. Mature people, or supposedly mature people. But men, they're like men, I get it. They love abuse. They have become addicted to it in and of itself. They seek out relationship. They know. Whether you know on a conscious level, some people aren't there yet to know on a conscious level. They're not attuned to who they are. And these intricacies of what has made them and shaped them to be the person that they are. They're not quite there yet, right? But whether they are there or they're not, and this is their reality on a subconscious level, like there are men who love, they seek out this. in relationships. And it becomes like this natural kind of gravitational pull where they attract people, only women, who are compatible with their needs, with their insecurities, right? This person that they are seeking will complement these insecurities that they have, unless otherwise they want to change or move to step out of this person that they have been for so long. But the more we progress through life, the less resistant we are to change. That's a fact. How many men watching this who know deep down inside that this is your profile are be willing to admit that you love abuse? There's something about you. Maybe you won't want to say and own up, okay, I love abuse, right? But at least take the step, very small step, to say that there's a part of me, right? There's a small part of me that may like it, that may be benefiting, that may be receiving some kind of reward from it, that finds it reassuring, that finds it comforting, that finds it comfortable and familiar, right? Making that connection to what's familiar from what you experience as a pattern growing up in relation to how your mom has raised you, who your mom is. We have to be honest as adults here. We just have to be. I'm reminded of another experience I had. It was more recently, though, with this fake ass Black Panther I met. I made a whole video on that. Fake as fuck. Alright? And I let him know that. Like, you're fake. But when I met him, though, it was on a train, and this is when I was working in Lower Manhattan, in the financial district. This was during my pre-doc internship, and I was leaving there, headed back home here to Upper East Side. I was sitting down, he was standing up, but it's like the energy between us was just magnetic. It's like this was supposed to happen. And I was attracted to the way he was dressed, because he was dressed like in Black Panther attire. He looked very militant, you know. I'm like, damn, okay. And he was assertive. He asked for my phone number, you know. Not only did he look at me, because a lot of men, this is the thing. People ask me why I'm single. There's many reasons why I am single, all right? A lot of it is from my choosing. A lot of it is because men are just too passive to approach me. They want to, and I choose not to really initiate conversation with a man. Like, no, you're going to express your interest. I want to see how assertive can you be? Who are you? I don't have to assert myself and say, oh, can I get your number? Absolutely no. I like to sit back and observe and see what is a man about. What's on your mind? Do you have the courage to approach me? Because I am not attracted to anything short of that. I'm just not. Can't force myself to be. All right? It's not going to go well, right? You have people that say, oh, well, no, just date, you know, whatever, right? Like, and they're talking about whatever in terms of looks and all different kind of criteria going against your wishes. You know, and this is what happens when you do that. You land up in a bed with somebody you know you're not attracted to. This motherfucker is ugly, and when you have conflict, I'm the kind of person I will let your ass know. Get your ugly motherfucking ass out my face. Call it toxic, whatever you want to call it. I call it real. All right, all that shit come out, right? So it's better for me not to date somebody that I don't find attractive, because I'm gonna call that shit, get your ugly ass out my motherfucking face. I don't want to be here with your ass anymore. You're ugly to me. Point blank, period. So we're on the train, and he's looking at me. I guess he couldn't resist. He definitely had the courage, and he approached me. Not sure who got the train first, but he made sure that he got my phone number before we parted ways. And he said that, yeah, he likes me. He wants to get to know me more. He liked the way I look. He feeling the energy. And I let him know, listen, the feeling is mutual, baby. What you feeling? I'm feeling the same thing, boo. Okay? I let it be known. And so, we vibing, from our conversation on the phone, we vibing, he's speaking that nice Pan-African revolutionary talk, right? And I felt like it was coming from a genuine space. I'm like, okay, he knows his history. That's attractive. He has his own place. That's attractive. We don't have any kids. Wait, no, he did. But his child was, I think, 9 years old, living in DC, I think. And so it was everything was kind of going right? And then because this is me, and I think it's not just me, as women, we'll test a man's gangster. I need to see, I need to see. A lot of y'all are imposters. A lot of y'all be faking the funk, be posing as one thing, you're really not that. I'm like, right? Because I know who I am, right? And where I come from, it's evident, right? I'm raised in the hood. I've been through a lot of shit. So that's the reason why I'm not moved by a lot of things. A lot of things don't budge me, because I've been exposed to a lot, right? And so, I'll be around people. I don't talk about that, like that, but that's just a reality. And it's just you'll be around men. All the time they do a lot of talking about all the bullet wound stories and all of that shit. And it's just okay. And he's talking this revolutionary talk and his work in the community, right? But then he says this one thing, and this is it right here, and I'm about to wrap this video up. But he says, there are certain neighborhoods in New York I just don't go to, right? And I've heard this before. He's the first person that said this. He's yeah, Brownsville, East New York. And that struck me wrong. I'm I don't know. It just struck me kind of way, because I'm just he's painting himself as if he a Martin Luther King. He's a Malcolm X. He one of them foot soldiers that's been out there in the trenches and all of that, right? You fighting white supremacy, you got to be ride or die. Willing to die for what you believe in, what you stand for. And a person that truly embodies that spirit. Not that you out here reckless doing crazy shit, but it's just you do hold a degree of confidence in yourself. You're very much connected to the spirit, the African spirituality that keeps you grounded, right? So it's just you really have nothing to fear. And, you've been around, right? You've been amongst people. So for him to say that, it's just and then he shows me the wound. He got a scar. I'm okay, right? His little battle wound or whatever. But still, I'm just how are you? My mind couldn't. I'm just saying, I've been around, y'all. I've been around real so-called gangsters, as they say, right? It just, my mind just wasn't quite calculating, I don't know. And it was at that point that I realized, nah, this shit ain't gonna work. And I kind of lost respect for him. I'm just little easy, cheesy, fake ass love, I looked at him, just either you are or you ain't. I said at the beginning of the video, don't try to be something that you're not. Just be who you are, right? But he was trying to be something he's not, but also at the same time, the truth was being revealed of who he truly is. Unbeknownst to him, though, I'm like, are you listening to yourself? This is the same person that when we went out on dates, right? We went to the museums. I think we went to the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art in Manhattan. And we went to the zoo, the Bronx Zoo. And he's like intentionally going out of his way to stir up conflict in the present moment. Not as if there isn't already underlining fucking conflict between black and white people already evident and apparent, right? But he's intentionally, purposefully, as we're out on our date, stirring up conflict with white people. Like he said, oh, sit back, watch this. I'm going to go over there in this white crowd, and I'm going to stand there and watch how they disperse. I'm like, why, yo? Like, he's going to invade people's personal space, walking up, essentially, on white people. I'm like, why? Unless there's a real reason why you're doing this, why are you doing this? Now, meanwhile, he's talking about he's afraid to go around black people. It further let me know that he is fake. He's putting up this facade as if he's one thing. He's not truly that. Maybe he wants to become that, but that's not really who he is. Like, he ain't really want that smoke. Like, he ain't really there. Come on. And that's not you. Cool. I've been around different shades of types of men. And, you know, there are men that know who they are. Like, you know, I ain't with that, you know. Right? And they're not trying to be something that they're not. They just are who they are. And that's their stilo. But that kind of really annoyed me. Because he was trying to live a double-faced, very confusing life when he really couldn't live up to that. And then he got a nerve to act like he deserves some ass. And that shit, like, so for me, when it comes to, like, dating, like, listen, I'll date, but I will cut, like, I have cut a lot of men off. I've dated, like, when I say date, I mean, like, went out on dates, right? Like, at a restaurant or, you know, different activities that we did to try to get to know each other. Sex not really involved necessarily, but this is, like, the beginning to the get to know each other phase. I've done that with a lot of men because I'm open. Right? But in feeling like men out, it's just like this, I will have to cut you off. Because I know it's not going to work. And I know myself above anything. Right? So if I see certain patterns in a man, certain characteristics, certain trends, and knowing who I am, I'm like, hell nah, bro. That shit ain't gonna fucking work. I see it before it even plays out. How it's going to play out. I'm like, it's not going to work. I don't mesh well with, for lack of a better term, bitch nigga energy. You a bitch nigga, you've been fucking broken. I know men who have been broken. Right? So if you are that man, you have been fucking buck broken, and you just that bitch, then just be that. Don't try to be something you're not, because I see right through you. Right? And I have an issue because those are the type of men that do have an issue with women. Right? They have fragmented egos. They've been emasculated, essentially. Right? You know those men. Been emasculated. They have an issue with women. If you have an issue with women as a man, right? I ain't talking about y'all little motherfuckers online because I can give a fuck. I can give a damn, right? I'm talking about people in my real life, right? Who I come across in real life, right? Who I may have the potential to date in real life. If you are that kind of man that deep down inside, If deep down inside, maybe you're not even conscious of it, but it's there inside of you that you have an issue with women, I am going to spot that out. I'm going to sense it. I can smell it. I am going to pick up on that. And you are going to have an issue with me. Right? I am going to reflect that back to you. And then you're going to be hating yourself. Right? So what was once your hidden hate towards women that had been brewing inside of you for this long, that then becomes reflected back to you, and now you are hating yourself. All right, it's like, yo, it's hard to explain, but it's a very different thing. Like when you come across a woman like me, you got to be careful. That's why a lot of men will warn y'all. You better be careful who you dealing with. They telling you this, right? Because yes, some women do hold that power. It's just there, right? It's not to sit up here and try to be egotistical or anything. It's just there. You need to be careful what and who you're dealing with, my brother. Your life will be forever changed. I'm just saying, though. I am reflecting back, like I choose to just be single sometimes. My relationships are intense. That's just how my relationships play out. They are very intense. Okay? That's just how they've been. And so sometimes it's like I like that phase in my life. And this phase has been going on for a little while now where, there's like just a sense of calm, peace, tranquility, not no friction there, when it comes to another person being in my life. I choose that. I choose that for my own protection. I choose that for the protection of men, of other people. All right, this is for your ass, A lot of men be very disappointed that, like, damn, what's going on? Like, like we'll be getting to know each other and I'm like, I'm not interested. I already see this shit ain't. And I step back because I know. They don't know, but I know. And it's just like, what happened? Like, what's going on, right? I could have been married. I could have been with children. For me, that's not the ultimate thing, though. Like, for some people, that's like it. That's not it. For me, it's really about that connection and that level of understanding and not being with somebody who's just a bitch and afraid. Like, yes, you can be human, right? Human beings, we have fears, things that, we're afraid of, things that may trigger us. But a lot of men, I make them tremble, yo. I'm just saying. There was this woman I came across on IG. She calls herself a witch, right? And me and her was like, we're conversing. And we were on her live, right? I remember she was wearing like this emblem, this African necklace with this emblem in it. It has significance to it. And I told her, like, I have something similar, right? And then, we were just conversing, and she looked at me. She's like, yeah, I know you. I know who you are. I'm like, okay. Shit, don't fucking, whatever. And she's like, you're a witch. I was like, I don't identify myself as a witch, right? But for people who do, witches, they do witchcraft. Witches, they may do voodoo. Witches, they have special abilities and powers and all this other stuff. Like, I'm not caught up with labels. And that's just across the board. I've said this before. I am not the one. Labels mean nothing to me, right? I know who I am. I don't have to carry a label with that. Well, you have people that, even on Instagram or whatever, on these platforms, like, they have that, like, in their little fucking bio, witch, this, like, no. If anything, I feel like when it comes to those types of things, if anything, I feel like it should be kept sacred and hidden. That's not something you be broadcasting. That's not something like, I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people become more commercialized with that. That's what it is, just commercialism. They feel like you need to just go in and broadcast the world. Like, no. I find it to be very unnecessary. But I mentioned that to say that game recognized game, number one. And it's just, you know, a lot of men just ain't ready. They ain't ready. That's why you really gotta be deeply spiritual. When I mentioned that, like on my profile, in my dating profile, I say, you know, gotta be spiritual. Motherfuckers don't even know what the hell that shit means. They don't know. They don't know. People that's spiritual, we been spiritual, right? We ain't learned this in no damn Bible study, no church school. Like, this is something that's just born in us. Before I learned how to read, like, I knew this about myself. My mom, my sister especially, she'll be like, you different. Who always like, you just weird. You different, right? She didn't know what that different was, but she just know, like, just be careful, right? I never really played the radio like that. I don't fucking play, yo. And like people who really know me in real life know, like, right? Sometimes people like test. Even my sister, remember, and I'll share this story, and I'll definitely have to wrap this video up. It's a really peaceful Saturday today. But I remember, like, when my sister was growing up, like, my room used to be the room, right? Because it's clean. I'm very organized. I'm kind of anal, right? Like, I know, just like my father, I think I get it from him, because I know if something has been misplaced, tampered with, touched, you know, I know. Right, you can't definitely get over on me because I know I'm very attuned to my environment, and I notice the smallest of changes if something has been different in my environment, right? My room was clean, and my sister would always like to come to my room and hang out. Even though she had her own room, she wanted to come in my room, right? And I would let her, but I'll have this rule, like, you can come in my room, right? Only if I'm there. And then, you cannot sit on my bed. I had a rocking chair in my room. So there's a rocking chair. I think I had another chair. And then there's a floor, right? But you cannot sit on my bed. My bed was off limits because I will make my bed. After I get up every morning, it's a ritual. I make up my bed. And when my bed is made up, I'm not even sitting on my bed. So why would I allow anybody else to sit on my bed? Like, this was just me. It may sound crazy, but listen, it is what it is, okay? And I made it be known, like, don't sit on my bed. She wanted to test. So that's why I know it's not just men like abuse, women like abuse too. I told, do not, like, what is it that people don't understand when you set boundaries? Like, they don't, you know, they don't get it. In the animal kingdom, right? Like, it don't take much, I think, for animals to learn. They know who to fuck with. Okay, nah, right? I ain't going over there to that lion because, you know, I know they higher up, right? In the animal kingdom, they know. It's common fucking sense, you know? You don't have to go through trial and error and like, oh shit, oh my gosh, right? Human beings are in the story. So, one day she sat on my bed, and she did it on purpose. She was like playful. Sat on my bed, it was a wrinkle, and I swear it was a knee-jerk reaction, yo. And I'm like, how old was I? I probably was 7, 8. I was young, elementary school. And then my fist show just went and boom, hit her in the eye. And she ran to the bathroom. I ran after. I'm like, you know, I'm calling my sister like, you okay? And I looked at her face, and her eye was turning like purple black. And I was like, oh shit. And I wasn't not saying oh shit because of her eye, because I really like felt proud of that, right? Because I'm teaching her a lesson. Like, if I'm telling you, not like, do not Just respect a person's wishes and boundaries, point blank, period, right? I was afraid because I grew up in a very strict house. My mom did not fucking play, and I get a lot of my personality from my mom. But I knew that I was going to get my ass beat, right? Like, badly by my mom. And so I had convinced my sister, begging, pleading, like, please, 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 do not tell mom, please, please, please. And we ended up working out an agreement where my sister did not tell my mom, and she lied and told my mom that she had bumped her head or whatever. I'm like, the story really didn't make any sense, but it got me off the fucking hook, right? But I say that to say, like, this goes back to, like, even when I was younger, like, before I experienced life, that I've always, this is my personality, don't play with me. And I feel like with that experience, like, she learned, so she never sat in my bed ever again. She had respect for me and my wishes and my room, right? She would sit on the floor. She would sit in the rocking chair, but not on my bed. By the way, I love Aladdin, so my room was, like, decorated in Aladdin. I had Aladdin poster. I had my dad paint my walls, like, fuchsia, purple, pink, or whatever. I had the Aladdin bedspread. Like, I thought I was a shit, okay? I love me some Aladdin. But it was just a lesson learned from that situation. Like, don't play. So I want you guys to drop in the comments below. What are your thoughts when it comes to this topic here? Do men like abuse? And of course, when we speak in generalities, it doesn't mean all, right? Because you'll have somebody say, I know all men. Of course, all men. Nowhere in the title do you hear or see the word all, okay? Right? Obviously, this is a catchy title, and I felt inspired to talk about this because I know that there's some truth in it. There are men who like it. They respond better to abusive situations than they do to the normal situations, the healthy situations, right? Interactions. I can spot that in a man head on, though. And unfortunately, it's like our society definitely has shaped a lot of men into beta men. A lot of men are emasculated. Like, there's a whole agenda. If you guys don't see, open your eyes, but there is a whole agenda strategically designed to just emasculate men. Have you seen the wave, the change, how men were back in the 50s, right? 40s, in your 60s versus today? I mean, just look at the pants that men wear. Look at the skinny jeans. Look at this whole Me Too. And a lot of movements obviously have impacted the gender expression of men that we see in our society. But I picked up on this, because I'm very attuned, I'm very aware, and I see, like, how these certain movements, not to say they're not warranted, right? The Me Too or the women's rights movement, doesn't serve a purpose, because obviously they do, but to also look at the side effects, so to speak, of these movements, right? These effects that we really don't want, some of us, right? Or now men are more men, I won't even say calculated. If anything, they're too calculated. I won't even use the word calculated because that's really a good attribute. But they're more hesitant. Men are more hesitant when it comes to their interactions with women, and they ask too many fucking questions. Not in a good way. All right, they're asking these questions to protect themselves from allegations of fucking sexual abuse or assault, right? As in response to these movements where these men have been ostracized publicly, some of which for just being men, right? just being men in terms of how they have been socialized for all these decades, and all of a sudden they want to switch the game up, right? And men aren't allowed to just be assertive, right? Asserting their masculinity, onto a woman. But yeah, back in the day, men definitely were allowed to do that. If a man was interested in a woman, the woman felt that, the same, right? She's responding to his advances. A man could touch a woman, right, without asking. He can put his hands on a woman's thigh, even on her ass, right? He can pick her up and dance with her, And this is just like in the beginning phase of getting to know a woman. Like, men, that was kind of like common, socially acceptable. But now, the men better not. Like if you're out, at a party and a social gathering and you just putting your hand on a woman's thigh, you better be careful, right? Like a lot of men definitely are much more hesitant in that respect. And I've witnessed this in my own interpersonal interactions with men, where it's just too hesitant for me, like, can I kiss you? And we're like, listen, we already been talking on the phone. We've been hours on the phone at that, like up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, just talking and vibing and getting to know each other. And I told you aspects of myself that I haven't told even other people, and vice versa, and now we're in each other's presence, and, our body language is obviously communicating more than our words verbally. And then you're asking, can I get a kiss? Which is like, that to me is just a turn off. But on that note, I gotta end this video. Share this video, drop your comments below, thumbs up this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. I think I'm gonna start wearing ties. It's funny enough, like I was walking through the city. I live here in the city, and I was walking and I heard someone say, I think I want to start wearing more ties. This is before I even got this, before the red carpet premiere that I went to of Luther. Now here I am. Look at the parallel. But now here I am thinking that, because this is my first tie. Don't look bad in it, huh? Hey, but on that note, I'm going to catch y'all later. Oh, and I did do the love potion spell on myself. I ordered this package from this beautiful goddess off of IG that I'm connected to. And I did a video where I unboxed it, and it came with some incense. It came with some Palo Santo, some sage, some oil. I'm not going to go get it, but I showed it in the previous video. But it's like in like this little kind of crystal ball. And it's a combination of different herbs and oil in there, and it has instructions on how to create a love spell on yourself so that romance will come. The right person, of course, will come. It's just kind of setting that intention in my near future. But catch you guys later.